I thought, well, if this series got rebooted, because TV shows have been rebooted even decades later, even movies, what would this show look like today if it got rebooted? Um, Now we know the main protagonist or the main bad guy was killed, right? Joe Carroll is dead. Many of his cult is gone, is done. But there is some similarities to Joe Carroll's cult, and which could be recreated today, especially in 2026. Now, I said, let's try to reboot the series and see what we can come up with, just brainstorming. So I took some notes, and I'm going to go over some things that I think that they could do if they was to bring it back, what direction it could go. Now, we know Ryan had a kid from his girlfriend, so the kid would probably be about 10 years old now. He had a niece, Max Hardy, who would now, to my story plot would be that she would be the she would be a high-ranking FBI in an FBI position within the FBI, New York field office. She would probably be either a bureau chief or some position like that. She'd be running the New York field office. Gwen, who was Ryan's girlfriend at the time, she would have a 10-year-old kid, 10, 11 years old roughly. Now the story plot would be that a new cult has emerged over the last decade, something similar to what we see today in real life. Right, I'm trying to keep it as close to reality as possible. Now, being that the show is going to be on Netflix, there's no rules, right? Like Fox, I was kind of surprised how much killing that the main Fox even had on that show, but we're gonna wrap it up even more because it's going to be on Netflix. Now, Max Hardy will be the new FBI. She could either be the FBI director or the bureau chief. You know, we could kind of play around with that a little bit. Jessica Stroop. Okay, so Jessica Stroop would play. We don't even know if she would come back, but if I was redoing this show, she would be the director of the FBI, New York Field Office, FBI Task Force. Uh, so she would be if she would come back to the show. Now, if she doesn't come back, if they do reboot and we can't bring her back, we would probably have to find someone else. But if she wouldn't want to reprise her role, or maybe we'll just create a whole new role in general, but it will still be connected somehow. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out. But all right, so back to the original point here, because we got off track a bit. So, um, when we reboot, Jessica Stroup would be FBI director. She would be Ryan Hardy's niece. Max Hardy would be the FBI director, New York field office, in charge of the task force. Because this would be about 11 years later, so she get promoted. She's done a good job. You know, she's fast tracked. She has experience in the New York office. She was NYPD for a while. So she realistically could be a special agent in charge, or even the head of like a behavioral analyst unit, right? A BAU, because she has that background. She also has cyber experience. If I don't recall, from she worked in the cyber unit for the NYPD as well. So she has a whole lot. Her resume is crazy. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary that she would be in charge of something big. Now, that's one part of it. Now, Ryan Hardy would definitely be back because obviously he's connected to this. Now the conflict here would be that Max would be the one running the new investigation into this resurrected cult. This cult, which is now kind of like a political cult in a way. On top of that, there will be another investigator, kind of like a similar role to Sean. What's his name again? Fuck, what's his name? The guy who played Mike Weston, but it will be a younger version of a Mike Weston in this scenario. So, according to our casting, we would have to find a Mike Weston type character because I don't think Mike Weston would be involved in this. He's too damaged from what happened before. He probably out the bureau. Did he even survive? I don't even remember. But we'll find a new cast. So there'll be another agent similar to Mike Weston that will be working directly under Max Hardy. So she hires a brilliant young lead agent to do the field tracking, while secretly leveraging a aging Ryan Hardy who's in the private shadows. He would be like a private consultant to ensure that her family dark past doesn't destroy the FBI's future. Now, we go into the reboot of tracking this new cult that has emerged, just a political religious angle that would fit perfectly in the modern extremism of today's climate as well as Netflix television. Moving away from the literacy obsessed serial killers, the 2026 reboot would lean into the terrifyingly realistic blend of Christian nationalism, populist politics, and digital radicalization. And I think that would be perfect for the reboot. The cult would be called the New Covenant, which was the Patriots, right? The New Covenant. Instead of a hidden network of artistic murderers, the cult operates in broad daylight under the guise of mainstream political as a political movement. The concept of the show, the reboot, would be they would present themselves as a hyper patriotic, faith based advocacy group fighting against the government corruption. On the surface, they hold rallies and charity events. Something, I mean, and this will be relatable because people have seen this type of stuff already. The dark reality, though, deep inside the encrypted forums and private militias, the leader uses biblical, you know, prophecy and political rhetoric to radicalize everyday citizens. They don't just kill for art, they execute highly targeted political assassinations, bombings, and terror acts designed to destabilize the government. Um, and how it would tie into today was like, they weaponized internet culture, algorithms, deepfakes to manipulate public anger, heavily mirroring the real world fragmentation and echo chambers seen in today's political climate. So that concept right there would be perfect for this reboot of the following. It would transition from Joe Carroll to this new politicized situation. I think that would be great for television. Scary in real life, but great for television. Now, the leader of this new cult would be a senator who's currently in office named Silas Vance. Now, I'm not, I don't, there's no connection to JD Vance. I'm just saying that's the guy, that's the name we came up with. Now, Silas Vance would be the antagonist of the show, right? He needs to be a charismatic, deeply manipulative, and completely untouchable due to his public status. And Silas Vance would be a young, charismatic, civil tongue U.S. senator running for president. And he is a master orator who seamlessly blends right wing populist talking points with furry religious rhetoric, right? That would be his persona. And this guy is like, he's going to be way more dangerous than Joe Carroll. Now, Joe Carroll was manipulative as well and charismatic, but he didn't have power in politics. He was mostly a literature guy, a professor. Silas Vance has the civil tongue where he can talk his way into anything. Now, the motivation for Silas Vance, unlike Joe Carroll, who wanted poetic chaos, Vance wants absolute institutional power, right? He will use his radicalized following to quietly eliminate his political opponents, which would make him way more dangerous than Joe Carroll ever was. He wants to intimidate judges, orchestrate crisis that he can publicly promise to fix if elected. Now, the casting of this new season, of course, we find who could play the role of Silas Vance. Now, we looking at one particular actor here who could play Silas Vance. Anthony Starr, who is a New Zealand actor, right? He could play Silas Vance. In the re-upload when I edit it, I'm gonna post the pictures, and he kind of has that look, right? He kind of looks. If you don't know who Anthony Starr is, a 50-year-old actor. He was in The Boys. Um, he's been in a few stuff. Banshee. He was Banshee. Remember Banshee? Banshee. Guys know Banshee. He played the Banshee from 2013 to 2016. So we would cast him. Netflix would cast him. I'm saying we, like, I'm not Netflix, but if I was Netflix and I would reboot the series, I would call him first. Say, hey, you want to play this reboot of the following. And he kind of has the look, right? If you look at him, he looks like a guy who can almost emulate Joe Carroll in a way, like far as the look. I think he would be perfect in this reboot casting, Anthony Starr, as Silas Vance. So he would be the one we'll cast first. Or there's another guy we can look at, Lee Pace, right? Lee Pace could be another person that could possibly be. Let me see who Lee Pace is. Lee Pace is another guy. He fits as well. He could fit that mold of a look of someone who could be Silas Vance. I think Anthony Starr would probably be more convincing because Lee Pace, he seems a bit. He's 47. He is 6'5", so that might, that possibly could be, but he might be a little too tall. I don't know. 6'5" is a bit too tall for the role, but maybe it works because he is running for president. So we know America loves tall presidents, taller presidents, and Anthony Starr is only 5'11". So I like Starr because I think Starr just looks the part better. But Lee Pace could be a guy that we can use as well for casting. Now, both actors possess the incredible ability to pivot from a charming, trustworthy public figure to a chilling, calculated psychopath in a single glance, right? So there you go. So that's who the two people will look at for that role as the lead protagonist. Now, the young FBI lead, right? It's the person who's going to be Max Hardy's protege. We're looking at Jeremy Allen White, possibly as the role. Now, depending on what Netflix would do, would they go with a lead guy or a lead? Jeremy Allen White is an American actor. He's 35 years old. He's been in a few stuff. Shameless, if you remember that. He's from New York, which fits perfectly because the role is in New York. We need a New Yorker. So he would be at the field office, so he could probably transition to that role pretty quickly. I don't know if he would be the best choice, but this is a name that we look at. Or we can go with Florence Pugh, who a female actress, if we want to go to female angle. Now, she's 30 years old, so she might be a little too young for the role, but I don't know. Maybe we go female because there's going to be a lot of male roles here, and we can go with her. She's from Oxford. She's from the UK. She's been in Thunderbolts, Black Widow, Oppenheimer. I don't know. I think I'd probably go with her, but over Jeremy, to be honest. She could probably play the lead, but I don't know. We are talking about a dangerous cult here, but I wish there would be a role for both of them, but I guess if I'm looking at, because this person has to be the new field lead, needs to be gritty, intensely stressed, and slightly unhinged. So could Florence Pugh be that, or would Jeremy Allen White fit that mold more? I guess Jeremy probably would play that character a bit better. Someone who's willing to break the rules and is deeply skeptical to Vance's, susceptible, to Vance's psychological manipulation. So I guess that role would probably need to be a guy. No offense, but so we'll probably go with Jeremy Allen White for the young lead agent. So because Pug is still only 30, so she is kind of young. I don't know if she would be sold as a FBI lead, right, at 30 years old. But so the plot dynamics between Max Hardy and Ryan Hardy, right? So Max is running the task force and Ryan is consulting from the shadows. Vance presents a nightmare scenario, right? So obviously being Vance is in politics, he would have connections to find out what's going on in the bureau. Now the political trap here would be Max cannot simply arrest Vance because he is a sitting politician with millions of fiercely loyal followers. If the FBI moves against him without ironclad proof, it looks like a partisan witch hunt, sparking widespread civil unrest because Vance is very popular. Now, Ryan's true value in this reboot, this is why Max needs Ryan, because Ryan understands how cult personalities operate, obviously with his experience dealing with Joe Carroll. Because Ryan is legally dead and working off the record, so everyone thinks he's gone. He can operate outside the constraints of the law to infiltrate Vance's inner circle, setting up a brutal intellectual war between an aging, cynical investigator, and a powerful modern demagogue. So as we continue this story, right, because this is still going into more and more, we're gonna have to expand this into a multi-season arc on Netflix, and we're gonna have to change a lot of the rules are different. The violence can really go. We can really get crazy with the violence. And on streaming platforms like Netflix, the graphic killing, the psychological horror, the complex political themes are not restricted by broadcast television censors, so allowing the show to be much darker and bloodier than its original run on Fox. So season 1 would be the grassroots terror, right? So this is how we would start off season 1. The political focus, the season covers the highly contentious primary election between Senator Silas Vance as he's running for the party's nomination. Now, we haven't, I didn't say what party he's part of, but obviously he would be a Republican in this scenario. But to not make it too close to what, so people don't try to think that we're trying to, like, attack something, we kept the actual parties out of it. So it'd be kind of like, I mean, you would make your own interpretation on what that is, but we haven't named it. Now, maybe if we're writing a script out, because this is a rough draft, so obviously we could make it a Democrat, could make it a Republican, either one. We could do whatever. We could make them independent. It doesn't matter. But we haven't decided that. Well, I haven't. So Silas Vance, he wins his party nomination, whatever party that is. Now, the killings, of course, the violence starts localized by brutal, and it gets real brutal, right? Vance's underground patriots orchestrate horror, ritualistic murders of local election officials and political whistleblowers, dressing them up like home invasions or random street crime. So you could kind of almost put together what party these people are a part of. The climax, the young field agent who's going to play, I guess that'd be Jeremy Allen, he uncovers the connection between the murders and Vance's campaign. However, just as Max and Ryan get close, Vance wins the primary nomination, and he uses a massive televised victory to publicly spin the FBI's investigation as a corrupt deep state hit job. So, he calls it the deep state is after me. They're after me because they're really after you, So similar to what we've heard over the last 10 years in real life politics. So that would be kind of the end of season 1 is Vance becomes the nominee. He's running for president. The FBI is on his trail, but they really can't do much because Vance is about to be even more powerful. So season 2, the campaign trail and the exposure, right? So the political focus in season 2 would be that this season will cover the brutal national election campaign as Vance is now running for the presidency and the country is deeply polarized. And more killing, of course, the body count skyrockets and becomes heavily publicized. Vance's cult begins executing high-profile political political assassinations, including a rival vice presidential candidate that gets killed. The killings are highly, designed to cause mass panic, so Vance can campaign on law and order. We heard that before. So the Vance twist here is the Vance Intelligence Network discovers that the legendary, legally dead Ryan Hardy is secretly orchestrating the FBI's move. So they find out Vance's intelligence network was, could be anybody behind the scenes. Would it be like someone who spied on Americans? Remember, he works in government, so he has access to all this stuff. He finds out that Ryan Hardy is still alive and has been helping the FBI. Instead of killing Ryan, Vance uses this information as a weapon. He leaks to the press that FBI Chief Max Hardy is using an illegal rogue vigilante to stalk a presidential candidate. So he starts now. Vance is going on offense. Now, the end of season 2, FBI task force is completely dismantled by Washington, D.C. The Washington, D.C. main office shuts down the task force. It's done. And Max is suspended. Ryan is forced back into the deep shadows on election night. Absolute national chaos as Silas Vance is elected president of the United States. That's how season 2 would end. Season 3, this is where things get real crazy. The Oval Office cult. Political focus here. Vance takes the office. The cult is no longer underground militia. They now have the full backing of the White House. Sounds familiar? the Secret Service, and the federal law enforcement. More killings. The violence shifts from rogue terror to state-sanctioned execution. Political dissidents, journalists, and uncooperative judges begin mysteriously disappearing or dying in highly orchestrated accidents. The end game here, of course, Max, Ryan, and their young protege are now completely on their own. No help, no bureau, they've been cut off, no access. They're operating as wanted fugitives because Vance has hunted them. He now has the full control of the federal government to go after all of them. The season becomes a high-stakes, breathless espionage thriller. To stop a sitting president, Ryan Hardy has to use the ultimate dark psychological blueprints he learned from Joe Carroll a decade ago to manipulate Vance's inner circle, leading to a bloody, catastrophic showdown inside the White House. Ooh. Right? So this gets real, man. And we got to go into that would end season 3. So we would have to have a season 4. Hopefully the ratings would reflect that, because I think people will want more. They were like, yeah, give me more. Right? So we go into season 4, and we push we're going into uncharted territory here for a political thriller. Right? In season 3, the cult gained control of the White House. In season 4, to raise the stakes even higher, it must deal with a catastrophic aftermath of a corrupted presidency and the total fracturing of the United States. So on Netflix, this would look like a sprawling, high-stakes geopolitical thriller about survival, resistance, and the ultimate cost of institutional collapse. Right? So the premise here is the post-Vance civil fracture. So season 3 ended in a bloody showdown inside the White House, resulting in the exposure and downfall or death of President Silas Vance. However, you cannot simply dismantle a political cult of millions overnight. So there's more to it. Now, the power vacuum here, with Vance gone, his radicalized followers do not surrender. They believe the deep state assassinated their savior. So as Vance got assassinated, his cult believes that the deep state took him out. A shattered nation. Several governors and military fractions break away, refusing to recognize the new federal government. The country enters a cold civil war, with Vance's decentralized patriots operating as a massive, heavily armed insurgent network across the country. So now the current status of the characters that will be in this new season: Ryan Hardy, having survived the White House raid, Ryan is now a mythic figure. He is universally hunted by Vance's surviving loyalists and viewed with deep suspicion by the new government. Older, physically broken, but intellectually sharper than ever, Ryan realizes he cannot stop his new war with a gun. He has to dismantle the ideology. Max Hardy, the restorer in this season, she's brought back to Washington to spearhead the radicalization task force. So she's back on the job. Her job is no longer tracking individual serial killers. It is a massive counterterrorism operation to rebuild the FBI from the ashes and hunt down Vance's inner circle before they can launch a retaliatory strike. Her protege, having spent 3 seasons learning from Ryan Hardy, the young field agent has completely crossed the line. He has become the new Ryan Hardy, ruthless, operating completely outside the law and executing Vance's hiding loyalists one by one. So this guy has become the Ryan Hardy. That's why I believe that Jeremy Allen probably gets this role better than Florence Pugh, because this character needs to become Ryan Hardy. Not to say that women can't be ruthless, but to become Ryan Hardy in this deep reboot, it probably needs to be a guy. So that's probably why Jeremy Allen would probably be the better cast. The new weapon here, the Martyr's Manifesto, right? So the primary threat of season 4 centers on a terrifying technological and psychological weapon left behind by Vance, the AI prophet, right? Before his downfall, Vance recorded hours of deepfake material, speeches, and algorithmic instructions. A highly advanced autonomous AI program begins broadcasting orders from Vance from untraceable dark web servers. So this shit gets crazy. We're going into the AI deep web situation here. The automation of killing, right? The AI analyzes public data to identify judges, senators, and journalists, rebuilding the country automatically assigning them as targets to the decentralized militia cells. The cult is now completely leaderless, automated, and self-sustaining, which is dangerous, right? So the seasonal arc and the ultimatums, right? So the hunt for the architect. The season tracks Ryan and Max hunting for the tech genius programmer who built Vance's AI system. Now, this character would be more like you could kind of predict who that guy would be in this type of season. Now, we don't even know who. I don't have a cast member who that would be. We would have to figure out who could play that role. But that's the guy who programmed Vance's AI system. The ultimate psychological mirror here to shut down an automated cult. Ryan Hardy is forced to do the one thing he's sworn he would never do. He must step into the light, use his own legendary status, and create his own counter, following to fight back. Completely blurring the line between hero and monster he spent his entire life hunting. So Ryan Hardy has to become one of them in order to stop them. All right, so to finalize this epic 4-season blueprint, we have to kind of, decide how we would do this. So we decided that this epic 4-season saga would end as Vance's AI program targets Ryan's 10-year-old son. Right now, at this point, Ryan's son is about 10, 11, maybe even 12 at this point, because we are like 4 seasons in, which directly drives the story into a ultimate series finale for Ryan Hardy. Merging these two elements, the Ryan Hardy's kid as well as the AI system, would be a deeply personal, heartbreaking conclusion to this entire franchise. So the catalyst here is that the Vance's AI program targets Ryan Hardy's kid. In the first half of season 4, as the automated Vance AI continues to orchestrate nationwide chaos, the algorithm identifies its greatest essential threat, Ryan Hardy, to neutralize him. The AI hunts for his genetic legacy. The abduction. AI activates a highly emboldened sleeper cell near Gwen and their 10-year-old child. Now, Gwen is Ryan's ex-girlfriend, or girlfriend at the time that he had the kid with. So the AI targets Gwen and the child. I say the child at this point is probably about 11, 12 years old. 10 years old was in the beginning of the series. So by now, the kid is probably 12. So we have to correct that. In a terrifying coordinated strike, the cult kidnaps Ryan's kid. Now, psychological warfare here. The AI doesn't want to kill the kid immediately. Instead, it begins broadcasting live, untraceable video feeds directly to Ryan and Max. The AI uses deepfake, synthesized videos of the dead senator speaking, which is former President Vance, speaking to the child, attempted to psychologically radicalize Ryan's own son on a global stage. The AI demands that Ryan Hardy publicly confess to murdering the president and surrenders himself to the cult for a televised execution, or his son dies. So that is how this goes. Crazy stuff. The trap at the automated compound, right? Because there's a compound, of course. There's always a compound in these shows. Ryan refuses to negotiate. He, Max, and the rogue protege, track the digital signal to a abandoned, heavily fortified military bunker in the American heartland, the server hub where the AI Vance is physically hosted. While Max and the FBI launch a massive tactical assault on the perimeter, Ryan and the protege sleep inside. They navigate a nightmare maze of automated defense systems and fanatical cultists who view the bunker as a holy temple. Ryan reaches the server core and finds his son. However, the kid is rigged to a pressure plate explosive tied directly to the AI's central mainframe. If the servers are shut down or destroyed, the bomb detonates. So Ryan's in a bit of a shitstorm here. Now, the ultimate series finale here, Ryan's final move, right? So this setup focuses Ryan into a ultimate psychological mirror. He realizes he cannot outshoot an algorithm, and he cannot save his son using traditional FBI tactics. He has to use dark, manipulative, philosophical studying type of tricks that he has to do. So Ryan uses his own deep understanding of cult psychology to manipulate the human programmer managing the AI core. He plays a psychological mind game, weaponizing the programmer's own religious fanaticism against him. forcing forcing a glitch in the security protocol. In a breathtaking frenetic sequence, Ryan manages to physically swap plates with his son, taking his weight into the pressure plate explosive. He forces the protege to drag his screaming 10-year-old son out of the bunker. So Ryan has sacrificed his own life to save his kid, right? Typical Ryan Hardy fashion. The final conversation here, right? Trapped on the bomb, Ryan activates a secure radio channel to Max. As the AI realizes it has been beaten, the digital voice of Silas Vance mocks Ryan, telling him that even if he dies, the ideology will live forever. Ryan, looking at the blinking lights of the servers, smiles a broken, cynical smile. His final words to Max are a reflection of his entire life's work, and then that's the end of the following. Ryan detonates the chamber, completely destroying the central mainframe and vaporizing the AI program along with himself. So the series ends a few months later. The nation is finally beginning to heal. The automated cult has gone completely dark, and Max is officially named the director of the FBI. The final scene shows the young protege standing by a lake with Ryan's now safe 12-year-old son. The protege hands the boy Ryan's old FBI badge, hinting that while Ryan is gone, a new generation is ready to protect the world from the dark. So that is how the 4-season arc of the following returns and ends. And in this return, Ryan Hardy actually gets a proper send-off to officially end the franchise of the following. Now, of course, that's just a rough draft, so a lot of stuff in between there. Of course, there will have to be a moment where Gwen and Ryan actually meets up again. We had to fit that in some way. But that's the rough draft of how that show would go if they was to reboot that series. And I think they should.